the first thing that we recommend all authors to do is to read the guidelines that are on the website of the journal. That might sound like it's obvious, but one of the first paragraphs that you'll see on the website of the journals is that we explain the scope of the journal. And we often receive manuscripts that would not fit well in the journal. So if we see in the abstract and in the title that it's obvious that the article, the manuscript, would not fit in Acta Poetica in our case, then we do desk reject it, and we send a note to the authors recommending them to submit it elsewhere, and sometimes we come up with some recommendations as well. The second rule, though I'm not as strict as some editors, is to make sure to follow the rules when it comes to the format of the manuscript as well. We do receive quite a lot of manuscripts that have 10 figures and 10 tables, so that's 20 altogether. That does not match our system as well. And the third and final rule, I would say, is to consider, if it's not obvious that your article is going to be a fit for the journal, to write a note with your manuscript explaining why you believe that your article would be a good fit for the journal. Quite a few authors tend to overlook this process, thinking that it's not needed, but we always have a look at what the authors say regarding their paper before reading it. So these are the three basic rules I would recommend.
Maybe I can add to that. I agree with what Benjamin has also been saying. I will probably add one important, I don't want to say rule, but at least important guideline to avoid a desk reject. That's to really know the journal to which you are submitting. What do I mean with that? Are you contributing to a dialogue that has been published already in that journal? Are you adding to what we already know that has been published in that journal? So a very good way to kind of reflect for yourself on whether you are acknowledging that is to have a look at some of the recent literature on the subject in the journal, and kind of make sure you are embedding that in your paper, you are reflecting on that, you have that clear fit. Because sometimes our scope statements can be quite broad, which is the case, for instance, at PAR. So making sure that you are contributing to an ongoing debate, that you know the literature from the journal, that you know the tradition in the journal, can be also very, very helpful.
Perhaps while I am underlining what has been said before, perhaps for PPMG specifically, we are looking for a specific type of articles, because the journal is dedicated to the advancement of theory in the field of public administration. So, of course, you also should read our guidelines, but it can also be helpful to just browse the journal to see what kind of articles are actually published in the journal, and is your article actually similar to those articles. And another point I would like to raise is your article should really be finalized. Sometimes we receive articles that I think are not yet finished. So please be considerate about also the reviewers and the editors, that you submit articles that actually are, well, your best work you want to have out there.
Yeah, if I may add to that, from a public administration point of view, I agree with all what has been said. At the same time, I also think, and I want to underline Benjamin's point about doing the notes, because we at Public Administration is a very broad journal aiming at research within the entire discipline of public administration. And then sometimes you have this very novel type of research which hasn't been covered in the recent volumes. And then it's in particular important to add that note, I would say.
So within the theme of submitting your manuscript, we now know a little bit about what you can do to avoid maybe getting desk rejected. But some of us get desk rejected. Many of us get desk rejected. Do you have any tips and tricks on what you do next? So how do you proceed when you do get desk rejected from one of your journals?
Well, of course, it depends why you got desk rejected. So if you feel that it's because the article is not yet finished or it's not of good quality, and of course it's very disappointing to learn, then you have to rework your manuscript. But if it's because it's a misfit with the journal, then you have to look for another journal. So it's easy as that, I think. So, but you have to make clear for yourself what is actually the reason why I got desk rejected, and ask for advice to your supervisors and also from colleagues. I see a lot of nodding.
Yeah, if I may add to that, I was planning on saying the same thing. So in a way, I can only repeat those to underscore their importance. And I want to add something else. Don't wait too long. If the article's not within the scope of the journal, you could even say, okay, resubmit it right away to another journal. Consider the scope of the journals, do it right away. And of course, if you feel you need to rework, then it will take some time, but don't feel so disappointed or discouraged from submitting it to another journal. And maybe I can tell a little bit of an anecdote from my former PhD supervisor. When I got rejected as a PhD student, he took me to his office and he opened one of these old-fashioned office lockers, and he showed me literally hundreds of old-fashioned paper manuscripts. And he said to me, look at this. These are the ones that all got desk rejected. And it was David Lowry. He had a list of 150 articles easily. So the bottom line is, you need a lot of desk rejections to have a very nice and decent publication list. So just go ahead, I would say.
If I might add to that, I think it's also important to well, of course, not get discouraged, right? I mean, the acknowledgement that everyone gets desk rejected and everyone gets rejected, that's really true. When we say that, we don't say it to kind of just for giving comfort. That's a fact. Just last week I got 3 rejects, right? So that sucks, but that's just the way the cookie crumbles. And one thing that I always advise on, and I think this ties in also with what Sandra has been saying, is to avoid reacting too emotional. So what I always tend to do if I get a desk reject or a reject decision is I let it simmer for some time. So I wait, I read it the first time, and then I say, okay, this sucks. I'm going to wait for a week and I'm going to read it again. And I have often found that comments which I considered unfair, harsh, when I read the paper first, or when I read the reviews first, they actually start to perhaps make sense after a week or after a couple of weeks, right? So it's perfectly normal that you react emotional to getting these types of reviews, but go outside, go for a walk, go for a run, do something else, and then look back at it after a couple of days and see which reflections might pop up. But don't be discouraged.
Yeah, let me add to that. I was really referring to the sort of the clean desk reject, as in, okay, it doesn't fit the scope or it is not finished, right? But I fully agree that if you are rejected based on reviewers, it is a very wise decision to, let it simmer a while. Think about it. Yeah, true.
If I may add, so when it comes to the desk rejections, the administrative desk rejections, as one might call them, if you resubmit elsewhere, please have a look at the guidelines of that new journal too, because it could be that the reference style is different. It could be that the word count is different in some cases as well. So just double check before submitting it automatically to another journal. Otherwise, it will look obvious to the editors, and some journals have sometimes grumpy editors, that you are their second choice.
Well, not us, right?
Not us.
If I may add, because I was also responding to the situation of a desk reject, but if you get rejected after a first round of reviews, or a second round even, then of course you have to look into those reviews. And then I fully agree with Bert that you need to, well, wait a little bit just to digest what has been said. And then if you decide to submit elsewhere, please still take note of those reviews and improve your article based on those before you submit elsewhere. There are two reasons for this. First, your article get improved, and that's important for science. But the second reason is that another journal may invite similar reviewers again. And there, well, we have a lot of annoying tasks in academia, and one of which is that you have to review the same article again, and then noticing that the authors did not do anything with your conscious remarks you have made before. So, two reasons to take a reviewer comments seriously.
And maybe if I can build on that, Sandra, specifically for the case of the desk reject, if a desk reject is purely based on formatting issues, it shouldn't be a desk reject, right? It should be saying, well, please change your paper, read the guidelines, make sure it's formatted correctly, and resubmit. If it's really a desk reject, then you would expect there to be some type of issues with scope or method or quality. Maybe it's an unfinished manuscript. And I think in those cases, it is very useful also to make sure you read the feedback coming from the editors. And if you are not satisfied with that feedback, and now I'm really, I hope Jeremy Hall will forgive me because he is the one getting these mails. I think it's okay to also ask the editors and to say, you know, this is a desk reject. It's based on some issues. You know, do you have any additional advice? This is not something I understand. You can ask for that clarification. They might not always respond, perhaps based on their moods, but I think most in our field especially will actually do their best to respond and to give helpful comments, right? Even though they don't have the space for an extensive feedback session, they will give helpful comments.